Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm so excited to be interviewing Amelia Naj. She is just the goddess guru of all things manifesting, just ideal sacred partnership. And the reason why I look up to her so much in this is because she has traveled the journey herself. And I just want to honor that in you, Amelia, because I know that you've really attracted into your life the most beautiful relationship, and you had to go through a lot in order to get there. So today I understand that we're going to be talking about, I'm so excited actually to be talking about the 3 mistakes that people really run into when they're trying to attract these relationships into their life, and yet they're still attracting the same abusive, narcissistic, whatever, fill in the blank relationships that they're trying to get away from. So why don't you start by just sharing a little bit about yourself and your story, and then we can get into all the jewels that you have to share today. I'm so excited.
Thanks, Kayla. Well, so my story is that I'm with my soulmate now, and we have a great life, and we have a house together, and we live together in the same house, and we have a 3-year-old, and we get along most of the time. You know, it's not perfect. We have our things. And I just didn't think this was going to be possible for me. You know, I came from a home where my parents were young. They were very young when they had me. So there was a lot of learning they had to do, and growing up they had to do. And we also had an immigration in the middle of all that. So that created a lot of trauma, and there was a separation in the family for 7 years. And also my parents both came from narcissistic homes, which was, you know, that was a very typical thing in Bulgaria, in communist Bulgaria. You know, that was kind of how you raise your kids, was like, oh, wow, you live for me, you grow up and you take care of me, you make me proud, you make me happy, you do what I want, you get the education that I think you should get, you get the job that I approve of, and you marry the guy that I approve of, you know, and you live your life in a way that's pleasing to me. Like, that was what sort of like the parental message was. And I think that, you know, to make the picture a little bit bigger, you know, that gets handed down from toxic culture, and that gets handed down from toxic government, right? So this was at the time during communism. So we can see how these dynamics don't just play out in that, you know, that country. Like, you know, if you look at other countries that have had a lot of trauma and war, or even countries that brainwash their citizens, like North Korea, you know, so there's just all these ways that we as humans control and want to control things, and we want to feel that we're in power. You know, we want to be, well, you know, we call it the ego nowadays. Nowadays we understand more about what that is, you know. So I know I'm really going into the big picture, but basically this was I just want to convey that this wasn't just like one thing, you know, there was layers and layers and layers of work to be done, and courage, you know, and courage. So you know, facing layers and layers of this in myself because of the way I was raised and what was modeled to me in my world, in my history, in my line and my generation, you know. So there's all these levels of it. So because of all those difficulties or challenges or blocks or problems, if you will, I just didn't think that was ever going to be possible for me. I mean, I didn't come from that kind of family. It was never modeled to me because I was raised in a family where both parents had a lot of narcissistic traits because that's how they were raised. You know, the message that was most often conveyed was that you know, I wasn't good enough. I wasn't worthy. No one was going to love me because I was too fat, or I got an A on the test, but why didn't I get an A plus? You know, like those kinds of things. And shaming, you know, we deal with that, not just in narcissistic relationships. So really, to me, that's like the opposite of a sacred partnership. You know, like this is like everything that isn't sacred partnership, right?
Yeah, that was a cultural thing. Like, a lot of people are just kind of breaking free from their ancestral lineages, but
exactly.
You really came from a cultural programming. So that's even deeper. Wow.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that we honor that side of it, right?
Right.
Because we can't, it doesn't just help to blame our parents.
No.
You know, it does. And although it starts there, we have to look at that, right? But we have to move beyond it and look at the dynamics of the culture and the time the situation where I placed in the generational line, all of that, right? So because of all those things, I started from a place of just feeling very unworthy, and very, very controlling. You know, that's what was modeled to me, but also it felt so safe, because I kind of want to speak to the trauma here. You know, when you go through a lot of trauma, which is essentially a lot of situations where you just feel helpless. You feel helpless, and there's things that are happening in your life that you just cannot control. There's nothing you can do about it, and it's damaging and it's hurtful, and you're kids, so you're powerless. A lot of us have that. You know, a lot of us have those instances, and they do affect our life and our sense of empowerment. So I started also, there was the wounding around it, where because of having gone through those helpless moments, I needed to be in control. And I was like a take charge woman, and, you know, I had a 6-figure business, and I was really good at telling people what to do. And so all of these things put together just created this total wall to real, authentic partnership with a man. It just made me this like impenetrable wall that would act out, and was like really impenetrable, like emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And so men were like, you know, the good ones, the masculine ones that want to provide for you, and they want to be of service to us, right? Like that's the divine masculine in them. They literally like would just fly away. Like they just go away. Like I go on one date, it would be like, they didn't come around. And also I think the other part of it is that I didn't know how to recognize them.
Well, how would you if you've never been taught to look for that? If you have been running on such a masculine frequency and a masculine programming, then why would you look for someone to take care of you if your primary role is to control everything, right?
Right.
So the feminine aspect is the surrender, which is probably what the more masculine men are seeking, you know, to find that balance, which we'll touch on in a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I know that you have a thriving practice now helping women really attract sacred partnership into their lives and break through everything, or, you know, aspects of what you've journeyed through on your own in your own life. And everybody has their own flavor of it, we should say,
right?
So let's chat about the 3 mistakes that you run into the most with your clients. Like, what's the first one? What's the number one thing that people really run into when they're trying to attract a healthy and fulfilling relationship?
You know, I think the main thing I see, and I see this a lot, is the beliefs that we hold is really not being willing to look at them and really being aware to look at like what's limiting us. And one of the main things that limits people is that they think a variation of these, right? Like, I always attract the same kind of guy. I don't know how to stop it. I'm not doing anything wrong. It must be those guys. Like, I'm just going to give up, or I want true love, but I don't think he's out there. Limiting belief, or it might be a different version. I'm too old. I'm too fat. I see another one, which is, I'm too damaged. It's too late for me, or, well, I had him, but he got away. Which may not even be true. It may just be like, he taught you a lesson and he got away because that lesson was over, and it's good that he got away,
Right.
and or, I live in the wrong city, or I'm too far away. But I think the biggest one that sort of has its clutches in people a lot is that it's not out there for them. It's not out there for them. Like, with what they want, what they dream of in their heart, like they almost not even dare go in and really talk to that dream or like hang out with that dream, because there's so much fear and beliefs that just block that, so the cost of that is huge.
I was just going to ask, what's the impact, holding that and identifying with that limited belief? What is the impact?
It's that you'll never break through. You have that little dream and you're going to sit with it in your heart, and it's just going to remain a seed. And you're always going to stay stuck. you're always going to stay stuck, and you're going to make these, they're almost like excuses.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you really want it, you have to be willing to face the fact that you're going to have thought patterns and ideas of how that should be or what that should look like that are going to be limiting how that's going to come into your life. So it's really a huge cost when we don't step into that, because we lose our relationship with our dreams.
Yeah. And do you think that that comes from self-worth or lack of personal accountability, a little bit of both? What is something, we'll answer that, and then I have another question.
Yeah. I know, right? Thank you.
We talk about this all day long.
It does come from self-worth, and it's not so much lack of accountability, but it comes from a lack of self-esteem. There's a part of us that doesn't believe that we're worthy, that we can do it, that we can really attract this man. And that's okay. That's okay for us to believe that, because really all it is just another belief.
Right.
So as soon as we just look at that and be like, okay, hey, wait, I might have that belief, even though I didn't think I had that belief. And that's not one that is going to get you it's not going to get you to where you want to be, to who you want to be, to the relationship that you want to have. And it's just, and the hardest thing, the most painful thing is that to lose that dream, that just means that you're going to live in hopelessness, right? Like to buy into those beliefs and to allow them to run the show and to allow them to take over, which many people do, right? Is really where we lose our zest for life, our confidence, because we're not even doing what our heart is asking us to do. We're not even trying. There's an element where we've given up. Yeah. And it's the door's like closed, the door's closed, but it's also like an internal struggle, because that dream is gonna be there. Especially like if you're a healer or an empath or a very sensitive woman, very spiritual. A lot of my clients are very, very spiritual. So we all have that tender heart, and we all have that whisper inside, and it's like that whisper is asking us to step up to sacred partnership. It is asking us to embody our divine feminine and learn to bring that out in the men. And it's like, well, how do we do that? So the first biggest mistake I see is buying into false beliefs, buying into false stories that maybe you were told or that came up along the way. So part of the work that we do in the Worthy of Love program is that we look at that and we really just start to see them as what they are. They're just choices we made at a certain point in time, whether it was because of what somebody told us, or because we had trauma and we felt helpless, or we had other emotions that were difficult to process and we couldn't, so we put it on hold. So we really just start to look. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah. Recognizing the root of that. So I guess that's what I was referring to with the personal accountability piece. Because we have to be accountable for the belief systems that we're allowing ourselves to subscribe to. Right. And so in order to shift that perspective, we have to take responsibility for having that perspective in the first place. And it's just, it's just awareness, right? And then once you recognize this is a limited belief that's really been running the show for a long time, letting that go is empowering in itself. And then working with someone like you who can offer the steps. So what is one actionable step that someone can take that would really kind of start this breakthrough process?
Yeah, well, one thing that's really helpful is just really writing down your vision. Writing down your vision. And it's so easy, right? Like you just sit down, get a pretty piece of paper or journal, whatever. Give yourself 10 minutes. It doesn't even take that long, but just really write down, what is your dream? How do you want to live your life? Who do you want to be? Who do you want to show up as? What do you want to get to do for others? What do you want to experience in your life? Do you want to go to Jamaica? Do you want to go scuba diving? Do you want to get to serve the homeless? There's all these things, right? So I feel like the first biggest step is really just reconnecting with that light inside, with that voice inside, and just sending the message. Ooh, I'm getting goosebumps right now of like, I haven't forgotten you.
Aww.
I know you're there, and I'm going to spend, even if it's just these 10 minutes, I'm going to give you a voice. because
honoring that.
Once you connect to that, there's nothing that can stop you. There's nothing that can stop you. And you'll have things that come up. We all do, right? In the process of the healing. But so there's a really important part, which is reconnecting with that.
Yeah. Like if those limited beliefs did not exist, then what?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's awesome. Great advice. I love that.
And just for anyone that's going to do this, if you're going to do this, I give you a permission slip. I love that. I don't know why I'm always giving people permission slips.
I love it. Some people feel they need them. So pass it out, girlfriend.
Yeah, there's things I need permission slips for, Kyla. You've given me some. I really appreciate them.
Permission to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I give you a permission slip to do this. I give you a permission slip to give yourself 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes. Sit down and just write out everything that is really in your heart. Like write down. If you could have things all your way in your life, what would they look like? Mm-hmm. And it's okay. Yeah, you'll know that it's not that way right now, but things change, right? Life changes. This too shall pass. So keep that in mind when you're writing these things down, that just because your life might look a certain way now doesn't mean that those things are not possible. That's
right. Because there are things that exist right now that we once dreamed about, right? So dreams come true.
Yep,
we both know that.
They do.
Yeah. What's another mistake? What's mistake number 2 that you've run into with your clients?
I think another one that I see a lot is, and this is another belief, but it's sort of like its own little root. And it's like, it's a version of, this won't work for me.
Okay.
You know, it's a version of like, yeah, but my guy has to be, he has to like fishing or not like fishing or, okay. or people, sometimes women focus on the life circumstances of a person versus like the qualities. And so they get caught up in this, like, this won't work for me because these are the life circumstances that I need. Like he needs to have a house, or he needs this, or he needs that. And no guy has that.
Okay.
So this won't work for me. This won't work for me because what I want. And it's really, they're focusing on something that is not really even part of sacred partnership. It doesn't affect your ability to have that connection with somebody. What their life circumstances, for example, is a very, again, transient thing. Mm-hmm. They could be a millionaire now and lose all their money in a year. Mm-hmm. Or they could be, someone who is very healthy, very strong, and then, life happens. They could get in an accident or get sick, so we can't be looking at like their life circumstances, which is one way that I see women apply this piece of like, this won't work for me because I need this, this, and this. And it's not even a reflection of
how they want
to feel, or the qualities that are part of that a partnership where the divine feminine and masculine really meet each other.
Yeah. It sounds like they're really attached to, on paper, like that list. So it brings me to your advice for the first thing, get really clear about what you want, but maybe just to add on to that is get really clear about the feelings that you want to feel, right?
Yes.
Because if you write, I want the picket fest, I want this amount of kids, I want this animal, you're actually limiting yourself to what is actually possible, is what I'm hearing you say. And so really tapping into what you want to feel in that first exercise. That way, when this comes around, you're not so focused on the exterior things. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah. And it's like, well, how do you want to feel? And some of us, when we've been wounded, when we've been hurt, it's hard to have access to that next level of feeling good, so it's like, yes, just imagining. Can you have it? Yes, I'm going to tell you. That's where the permission slip comes in.
If it were possible, what would you want to feel?
Yes.
If anything were possible. So what's the impact of people really remaining attached to these exterior material type things? What's the impact that you've witnessed in your clients?
Well, it's funny. I think it's a little bit of like, women don't know this, but it's a little bit of a protection mechanism.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like, it won't work for you because you need this, this, and this, or, so-and-so is more gifted, or they're more talented, or you don't have luck, or You don't have, you know, whatever it is that you think you need to have that vision, you know, to have that thing. So it really just comes down to being willing to have that vision.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
so the tip is be willing. That's it. Just be willing. Be willing.
Yourself.
And willing is not like, well, if it shows up, I'll go with it. You know,
right.
Willing is like you are actively willing. That's why it has an ing at the end. Like you are willing. You are doing it. You are willing it. You're like,
willing it. You're calling it forth.
Yeah. Like you are standing for it. You're allowing yourself to be in the vulnerable space of believing in it. That's a vulnerable space, because really what if you get disappointed? What if it doesn't happen? What if, right? Like we all have those fears. So it's like the willingness is where it's like you show up in, hey, I'm willing. I'm available in this space, and I'm gonna stand for this. I'm gonna stand for this, and I'm gonna be next to it. So in the first step, we looked at like, okay, write your vision, and the next step is like, and be willing with that vision. Be willing,
like actively co-creating, like actively
like
remaining open, not just, okay, I planted the seed, now I'm going to go on with whatever, like really remaining conscious and a co-creator, right?
Yeah. And we work on this because this is also a skill. And that's another little caveat that I want to say. A lot of people think like, oh, she's born with it, or, maybe it's my Willie. She's born with it. She knows how to do it. She's got it all. She's got a great man. She's lucky. And it's like, no, sacred partnership is a skill. We don't get taught this in school.
Right? No kidding.
We don't get taught this in our culture.
We really don't.
So there's really also the willingness to be like, hey, I don't know this, and I didn't learn it. And again, I want to give you permission to not know it. It's okay to not know it. I didn't know it. And then, that opens you up to doing what you need to do, getting some help or getting a coach or meeting with girlfriends and having like a coffee date around, okay, what's our vision? What are we going to stand for, rather than like gossiping or whining about the experiences that you had with men, kind of thing. So it just changes your whole way that you show up in your life.
Like what's giving you energy and what's taking your energy.
Yep. You start to notice.
I think, or what I'm hearing you say is really visualizing and co-creating it just activates so much, and when we really identify and stay small and stay stuck, we're just going to spin in the same cycle over and over and over. So, exactly. Oh my gosh, we're so lucky to have you on the planet. What's the third mistake?
Well, it's funny how they're all tied together, right? Like,
of course.
So the third mistake, the biggest mistake, and this is for all women. This goes for me. This probably goes for you, Kayla, I would imagine. Other women, successful women, even women that are successful with relationships, women that have 5 kids, women that seem like they've got it together in their marriage. We all have this issue as women on the planet today, and it's receiving. Receiving. We all have this issue to begin with, okay, because of our culture right now that we live in, because of the amazing work that the feminist movement did for us. But there's an element where, we a little bit threw out the baby with the bathwater because we got so independent that we almost even forgot how to create interdependence, healthy interdependence. I'm not talking about codependence, and I'm not talking about independence. I'm talking about interdependence. We kind of forgot that. What does that look like? What does it look like to really depend on your friend for emotional support that day? It's not every day, it's not all the time, but that day you might need it, and it might be really okay to lean on her and allow her to give that to you. And it's so key with men, because like we said at the beginning, the masculine in them, the divine masculine, and inspiring that and bringing that forward really is about allowing them to provide for us, which means that we have to receive. And that's very vulnerable, right? That's very vulnerable. And particularly if you've been in abusive relationships, it's even more scary, because then, like how I was, you know, you've got that wall up and you're protecting yourself, and you've become hardened. And not only will that repel men, but also you won't be able to create partnership, because there won't be room next to you for anybody to contribute anything to you. And that's what men specifically are actually inspired by in us women. It's when Alison Armstrong, my teacher, calls us a strong woman, voluntarily vulnerable.
Oh yeah.
Like
we
are so strong. We've survived, right? Like we've survived. And now to thrive, we have to learn how to receive. We cannot thrive without recalibrating that muscle, if you will.
Right.
You know, so
yeah, I mean, the masculine energy is so action, 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 which you and I have shared a history of. And what I have personally found is the divine feminine is the receiving, the divine masculine is the action. So we all embody both, right?
Right.
So when we have that inspiration, whether it's through meditation, walking in nature, whatever, that's that divine feminine. And then we are still allowed to engage our divine masculine by taking action steps from that inspiration. So this can play into exactly what you're saying. You know, the inspiration comes through with how you want to feel, how, you know, even if you don't feel it's right for you, like think of another relationship that you admire. What do you imagine they feel? And just try that on for this exercise, you know?
Yeah.
And then as you start to see opportunities, engage that masculinity in a harmonizing dance with the feminine. You don't birth anything from your head, right? And so I feel, or what I've experienced, and just to kind of play on what you're saying, is when a man sees a woman who has that what's the word I'm looking for?
Integrated feminine
and masculine dance already within them. It gives them permission to also tap into their feminine reception, you know, but they can also show up for you. It's like a dance that you can have, giving each other permission to just be vulnerable, or to, you know, it's really beautiful once it's synergized.
Right. And that is, there's just no way to have sacred partnership without receptivity on our part.
It's so true.
There's no way. True. So if you're like I was, you know, if you were hurt and you have a wall and you've got this strength about you and you want to be strong, it's like, you know, I give you permission to let that go. Like I gave you permission to be like, you know what? I've survived and I'm graduated and I want to thrive.
So on that same note, because some women may not realize that when they are in that really, quote, powerful masculine position, they aren't identifying with it yet as masculine. They really do feel that they've succeeded in a sense because nobody's telling them what to do.
Yeah.
What is the best advice that you can give them? Because more than likely they aren't really attracting the relationship that they desire if they're still in that firm stance. So what's something that you can, like, what's the cost, and what's something that you can really invite them to look into doing?
Yeah, so the cost is that you will not have fulfillment, even if you are in a relationship. Like I have married women that have that sort of castle strength about them, right? Like I'm a fortress, you know, and you miss out on so much. You miss out on, like, you know, the image that's coming to me is all these gifts that the masculine has for us and all the ways that they show up. And trust me, like I miss this too, okay? Like when I'm in my business mode, or I'm like really on track on something, and I'm being, you know, in my masculine energy, which is fine. You know, my husband's like doing things for me sometimes and I miss it, you know, I miss it because I'm not in receptive mode.
Yes. So it can just pass you right by and you don't even see it.
Right. And so we lose out on so much when we stay in that mode, we lose out on all these ways that people want to contribute to us, whether it's our men or whether it's even just our girlfriend or even the mailman who wants to pick up the garbage that's lying on our lawn, you know, like, no, I'll get that. No, thanks.
Right.
You know,
right.
And,
and you don't want to put them out, but really they want to do it. Otherwise they wouldn't offer.
Yeah,
so we're taking it away from them too.
Exactly. And it makes them feel good to get to do something for us. So there's a huge cost to this, because one of the things that really I see a lot in women, whether they're in a relationship or not, is loneliness.
Yeah.
Is a deep, profound loneliness.
It's common to feel even lonelier in relationship for some people than if they were single. I personally have been in that relationship, and it's not fun.
Yeah, so the cost of that fortress and that strength and that independence is loneliness. Whether you are in a relationship or whether you're just dating, it's going to be loneliness. And this is a hard one, because receptivity allows vulnerability. And, you know, when you've built up a lot of boundary, I don't want to call them boundaries, like walls. They're really just walls. It takes a permission slip first, you know, and then it takes willingness to just be with that again and rediscover what it's like to receive. And so my little tip would be, if you don't want to be lonely and stay stuck in being lonely and feel unfulfilled, you're going to feel unfulfilled in your relationships if you can't receive. You'll be like, oh, I never get that. You'll be resentful. You'll get passive aggressive. You'll get, edgy, irritable. I mean, all these things that go with like your needs not being met. And it's like, well, you're not allowing for your needs to be met. Nobody even knows what your emotional needs are, or your other needs maybe is just to do the dishes or take out the garbage. So there's a huge cost to this. There's such a huge cost to this. And like I said, this goes for all women in our culture. I believe almost all of us struggle with this. And it's specifically difficult for women who have had trauma or abuse or difficult long-term emotional struggles or draining relationships, because then you're like, well, I can't rely on you for anything, so I'm just going to do everything, on myself. What do I need you for? And you're right about that person, because they're not showing up. But you take that same attitude into your next relationship, and you're going to kill sacred partnership.
So what's a small step? Because I think a lot of people are nodding their heads right now going, okay. So what's a small step that people can take that this feels a little intimidating, like, I don't know, but they're willing?
Yeah. My favorite, and this is how I started. Okay. So if you're struggling with this is how I started. I literally started letting men open the door for me. And just saying thank you.
Oh, yes. And compliments as well. When someone gives you a compliment, say thank you. Do not try to convince them otherwise.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
compliments. So any little way that you can receive, let somebody open the door for you. Let somebody give you a compliment. Let somebody pick up something for you when you drop it. Rather than be like, oh, I got it.
Right. Yeah.
And I know those are so small, and they don't necessarily have an impact on how you feel every day, but they're little tiny bite-sized tips.
It opens that door.
Right. Exactly.
Bite-sized tips on, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay. Yeah. Bite-sized tips on getting started. Yeah. On getting started with receptivity and getting the feeling of what that feels like to have something given to you in that moment that you really needed it. And you can do it for yourself. Like no one's contesting that. Like we have proven this. Our ancestors have proven this. The feminine movement has proven this. We can do it for ourselves, right?
Well,
like we can.
And we've gotten this far doing it for ourselves, but how's it working? And how would it be if we had a little help?
Right. Yeah, we can do it. I know you can pick up that thing. I know you can open your door and just a little, like, try it. How does it feel? and it's going to feel vulnerable. It's going to feel vulnerable. Even just letting a guy open the door, or letting somebody pick something up for you, or really receiving a compliment. Like, you get the compliment. It's like, you want to like negate it right away because it's vulnerable to receive. So that's my little tip, is just start small. Start small. And if you're already somebody who's you're receiving in those kinds of small ways, and you already were like, well, I let men open the door for me. That's not a big deal. I let this, I let that. Well, then look at somewhere where you're not letting it.
Yeah.
Look at somewhere where you're resentful. You're resentful because maybe in your marriage you're resentful of your husband, and really when you sit with that resentment, you realize that you just want him to take care of the garbage. So then it's like, you can ask him, and then receive that from him. And in Worthy of Love, we talk about what that looks like. It's like making those vulnerable quality requests of men, and how it inspires them to provide for us, and inspires them to show up in their highest, right? And their divine masculine, and what that looks like. And that is the biggest piece to sacred partnership, is really cultivating our receptivity. And to cultivate our receptivity as women, we need to cultivate our vulnerability. And that's our soft side, that's our feminine, that's our divine feminine side that is willing to receive. And I do talk in Worthy of Love, I do talk about this a lot, because sometimes when people think about receiving, they think about it like a passive thing. Alison Armstrong teaches this too. It's like a passive thing. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna just sit back and let them do this, whether I like it or not, And actually, receptivity is not passive.
It's active.
Yeah. It's active, and it's a power. It's a feminine form of power.
It's Shakti.
Yeah. It's a feminine form of power.
I always say vulnerability is our superpower. And even though, you're speaking to it as it's the gentle feminine side and all of that, it really is. And the reason why I call it a superpower is because that's where we all can connect. A lot of people are talking love and light and yada, 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 but not everybody's talking about the challenges and, where we feel stuck and all of that, because we're comparing ourselves all the time, where the person who's just saying, I'm struggling right now and this is going on for me, I guarantee a lot more people will say, thank you, me too. And then you're giving permission. You're handing out permission slips simply by speaking your truth.
Yeah.
Simply by standing in your vulnerability,
right.
And so in your vulnerability, your safety really does lie.
Yes.
Because a lot of people feel in their vulnerability, that's where they're not safe, when actually that's where you're the safest, if you allow it to exist. Right?
Yes. And it's the safest if you want sacred partnership, if you want a sacred life, if you want a fulfilling life. And I just want to give an example of this in my own life. Just very recently, this Sunday, we had this conversation with my husband where, putting on the summit and doing all the work and really showing up for it has been my dream. And I've been delighted to do it. And it's required a lot of me. It's required for me to show up in my leadership as a woman, and some ways that are more masculine because they're more action generated, and I had been feeling this disconnection with him and this sense of like loss, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm just busy, but really when we sat with it and like I was willing to really look at it and share with him, I realized that I was afraid that in me stepping up to the things I wanted in my life, that I would make him feel small. And I was afraid I would lose him. I was afraid like it wouldn't give him a chance to shine or like have his masculinity appreciated. And so that was like my fear. And because I had that fear, I wasn't being receptive and I wasn't being vulnerable, but to like tell him that. And once I told him that, it like shifted the whole dynamic. It's like we were dancing again, because now he's been helpful and supportive all along, but he stepped up to the next level of that. Like,
awesome.
Like, what can I do now?
Awesome.
What do you need now? And even when if I got angry or like stressed out, he'd be like, what can I do now? And so it was like the next level of connecting and really like being in the dance of our life and what we're creating and who we're being in our lives together, which is what sacred partnership is. It's about real life partnership. It's not, oh, he's my twin flame, he's my soulmate, but you know, we could never live together because he's abusive and he drinks and he smokes. And no, you know, your soulmate, if you want sacred partnership on this planet, if you want a practical sacred union, that's your soulmate. That's your soulmate. It's a practical union that works every day. It's not perfect. It's not a water slide. I love water slides. You know, it's not a water slide the whole way. You know, you're going to have little nicks and stuff because there's things to work out. It's life, you know. So sacred partnership is actually something very practical and workable. And it's about how to live a real life extraordinary partnership with a man that treats you like a queen, that loves you and sees you for who you are and wants to be there for you and wants to help nourish your dreams and wants to be a great dad and wants to be a great husband, and he's healthy. He can provide that. He's not all tied up in getting his own needs met and all focused on the things that he doesn't have in his life. He's a healthy guy. Yes. So we have that too. I talk about that with the Pick the Right Guy checklist, which you get as a bonus of this conversation.
Yay! Awesome. You're just such a wealth of knowledge, and I love how it's all come directly from your own personal journey, your hard inner work, you know, how you have positioned yourself to release what didn't serve you in order to open up to what has quite literally changed your life. And now you have a thriving business and helping so many people. And I just want to thank you so much for showing up, sharing your gifts, allowing me to hold this space and pick your brain, because I just admire you so much. So do you have any final words of wisdom or anything else you want to say?
Yes, I want to say that we're the ones we've been waiting for.
We are.
And I want to say, and I want you to say yours, but I love yours too.
We are the answered prayers of our ancestors. We really, really are, you guys. They have been praying for us, and we are here, and we are here to show up, and the time is now. And we really are the ones that we've been waiting for. It's not outside of us.
No,
it's right here.
We can do it.
We can have and this. We are.
and by having it, we can be an example to others, and the love. And this is the part about healing Mother Earth, is like the love and the light from that changes the vibration on the planet. It changes really the vibration on the planet.
The ripple effect.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You're going to say something.
I was just going to say, for anyone that wants to take this deeper and look at how to create sacred partnership in your life, or how to nurture the partnership that you have into a more sacred connection with your man, you can click on the session button and apply for a love and confidence breakthrough session with me. And I'd love to talk to you. I don't have a ton of these. You know, my schedule fills up fast, so make sure you grab yours while we are on this awesome event.
You are worth it.
Yes, yes, and you can do it. You can do it, and you can have it. And I give you permission.
Here's your permission slips. Permission slip for everybody.
Handing them out.
So everybody, you know, if you have a block that you've noticed that is recurringly shown up in your journey of trying to find sacred partnership, just post that below, because you might be surprised with, you know, not being alone in that. So we're all connected, and with truth and communication and honesty and trust, we can have anything. So it all starts right here.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. So post on the comments below. What are your challenges with sacred partnership? Let us know.
Let us know.
Let us know.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you.